coming up tonight on VCU InSight.
I'm Ahmad, and I'll tell you how a local organization is demanding that Richmond be declared a sanctuary city.
Kelvin Mines. Hear how one organization at VCU has been helping and supporting injured and suffering Syrian refugees since 2012 by sending medical supplies and clothing.
I think my problem has been where a university already has cash on hand and they have the assets on hand and they raise tuition anyway.
Coming up, we'll give you the details on how the General Assembly plans to lower college tuition.
All this and more, VCU InSight starts right now.
From the Richard T. Robertson School of Media and Culture at Virginia Commonwealth University, named Best Student Newscast in the Mid-Atlantic, this is VCU InSight.
Good evening and welcome to VCU InSight. I'm Kayla Miller-Keys.
And I'm Nora Deer. Thanks for joining us. Upwards of 100 protesters rallied outside of City Hall to demand Richmond be declared a sanctuary city. This is in direct response to Mayor LeVar Stoney's directive of inclusiveness. Hiba Ahmad has more on the story.
On the same day President Donald Trump signed his infamous travel ban, he also signed an interior security order, which encouraged local police departments to work with Immigration Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, to find and remove illegal immigrants. As a result of the order, local organization ICE at RVA held a rally outside of City Hall and attended a city council meeting to demand that Richmond be declared a sanctuary city. Claire Gastianaga, the executive director for the American Civil Liberties Union of Virginia, tells us what she really thinks about the president's executive orders.
This current initiative truly is not about either terrorism or people who are here without authority. This current initiative is about making America uncomfortable for people who are not white.
In an effort to show a sign of solidarity with the city's diverse population, Mayor LeVar Stoney released a directive of inclusiveness. The directive states that Richmond will continue to protect and stand with the citizens regardless of sexual orientation, citizenship status, race, and more. Carolina Velez, one of the organizers from ICE at RVA, applauds the mayor's directive, but said more needs to be done.
We want to see all of our communities coming together and making sure that these inclusive policies, people that are directly affected are involved in the creation of being accountable.
Following her testimony, Councilman Parker Edgelosto announced the creation of a task force to establish a human rights commission in Richmond. According to Velez, this is a small victory and a long fight ahead. I'm Hiba Ahmad with VCU InSight.
ICE out of RVA and ACLU both said that they will continue to monitor interactions between citizens and law enforcement.
President Trump's temporary travel ban also targets Syrian refugees fleeing a bloody civil war, which has claimed the lives of 500,000 people. Here at VCU, United to Heal, a student organization, has been extending a helping hand to Syrian exiles since 2012 through their shipments of food, medical supplies, and clothing. InSight's Kelvin Mines has more on the story.
On December 19, 2016, a 40-foot container truck filled with supplies was driven and loaded onto a ship in Norfolk, headed for the Turkish-Syrian border, according to VCU News. According to Bilal Qureshi, Director of Expansion and Development for U2H, the VCU chapter was founded in 2011.
My friend, the late Mohammed Shaban, he founded it in 2011, the VCU chapter. And it was a very simple goal of just collecting surplus medical supplies around the area and sending them to countries in need overseas.
It is here, at this warehouse off of Moy Street, Unit 31, where U2H sorts through the supplies they've received and packages them up for shipment. But according to Faisal Al-Sharif, Vice President of U2H, sometimes they deliver supplies directly to Syrian refugees.
We've helped refugees locally as well. When they come to the United States and we have excess medical supplies / apparel, if the container is full, we reach out to them to give them the supplies as well locally.
With President Trump's travel ban on 7 Muslim-majority countries in legal limbo, Saman, a volunteer for U2H, copes with the possibility of not seeing some of his family again.
So my aunt was over at my house this past summer, and now she can't be back over. So that's kind of shocking. It's like, oh dang, well, I might not see her again, you know?
For VCU InSight, I'm Kelvin Mines.
If you'd like to help, check out their website at unitedtohealinternational.org. U2H will be hosting their annual gala on April 22nd to collect donations from the community, which help them grow.
Voting rights are back in the headlines after President Trump raised suspicions of alleged voter fraud during the 2016 presidential election. The General Assembly passed a bill that will require voters to provide proof of citizenship in order to vote in local and state elections.
Who are dead, who are illegals, who are in 2 states. You have people registered in 2 states. They're registered in New York and in New Jersey. They vote twice. There are millions of votes, in my opinion. Now,
according to HB 1598, starting next year, citizens who wish to register to vote will have to provide proof of citizenship, either through a valid birth certificate, passport, or naturalization papers. Those who wish to only vote in federal elections will not be affected. Delegate Mark Cole of Fredericksburg proposed the bill to stop non-citizens from voting illegally and increase confidence in elections at all levels. According to Cole, there were roughly 1,000 non-citizens who registered to vote in Northern Virginia during the most recent election. Of those 1,000, there is proof that 85 of them voted illegally. But Delegate Rip Sullivan from Arlington isn't buying it.
What we know about this bill, what we know for absolute certainty, is that it will disenfranchise people who are U.S. citizens, but who simply are unable to prove they are U.S. citizens.
According to Sullivan, this bill is one of many that is expected to be vetoed by Governor McAuliffe once the General Assembly session ends later this month.
Governor Terry McAuliffe vowed to veto a bill for a second year in a row that would defund family planning organizations. But GOP candidates for this year's gubernatorial election say they keep fighting to wipe out the funds. Alexandra Sosik has more.
Mike Pence is a longtime opponent of women's health.
VCU is one of 8 schools Planned Parenthood held rallies at on February 15th for their statewide day of action.
He is the first politician to introduce legislation in Congress to defund Planned Parenthood and has spent his entire career attacking Planned Parenthood.
Nia Bental says they are gearing up for their biggest fight of the year.
People's health care is on the line, so we have to get involved in the 2017 governor's race.
A congressional recess is in place until February 26th, and Bental says Congress will be hearing from her and many others who support Planned Parenthood.
We need them to hear from their constituents in town halls, at the grocery store, wherever, that the overwhelming majority of Americans do not support defunding Planned Parenthood.
The primaries for Virginia's gubernatorial election aren't until June 13th, but the candidates have already made it clear if they support Planned Parenthood or oppose it. Republican candidate Corey Stewart's campaign website states, "We will work to defund Planned Parenthood and fight for tougher restrictions on abortion." According to published reports, the GOP's effort to defund Planned Parenthood likely stems from the loyalty pro-life activists have shown through their dedicated votes for GOP candidates. Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam, also running for governor, commented on the GOP effort, saying, quote, "Personal medical decisions are best left between a woman and her doctor. I continue to be frustrated by politicians' nonstop attacks on a woman's access to the health care she deserves." Alexandra Sosik, VCU InSight.
Planned Parenthood advocates of Virginia held multiple rallies at town hall meetings on Tuesday, February 21st. Believe it or not, at one time, Virginia was so segregated that blacks and whites couldn't even be buried together.
That's right, Kaylin. And while these historically black cemeteries are still in disrepair, Confederate cemeteries have been well maintained by the state. Wanye Reese is in the studio with a shocking look at these neglected cemeteries.
Open caskets, blood, and grass overgrowth. That is the reality for African Americans who are buried at historic Evergreen Cemetery in Richmond, which is in horrendous conditions right next door to Confederate cemeteries that are well maintained and receive thousands of taxpayer dollars.
Segregation, white supremacy, slavery, just a few of the words that sum up the history of the Confederacy. Despite that history, for the past 10 years, the state of Virginia has been spending over $30,000 per year to maintain historic Confederate cemeteries, according to Virginia state law. But now compare that to black historic cemeteries that have broken headstones, grave robberies, and overgrown vegetation. As you can see, Evergreen Cemetery is in very bad condition. This mausoleum was in fact busted open according to a volunteer. So it yields the question, why in death were blacks and whites segregated? VCU African American history professor Nicole Turner told me why this is.
I mean, that has to do with the total nature of sort of white supremacy in American society and the attempts to fully degrade the humanity of African people.
But there is hope. Delegate Dolores McQuinn is leading House Bill 1547, which would provide equal funding to historic African American cemeteries.
In that area was housed some of the greatest iconic leaders, actually, of the 19th century. I just felt it was so absolutely necessary for us to honor them and be mindful of their contribution.
The House bill for these neglected cemeteries had passed both the House and the Senate and is expected to be signed by Governor Terry McAuliffe. In addition to proposed state funds, the Virginia Outdoor Foundation gave Evergreen and East End Cemetery $400,000 to preserve and maintain the cemetery last year. And Delegate McQuinn is requesting your help. She hopes to gather 500 volunteers at Evergreen and East End Cemetery on Saturday, March 11, 2017, with the goal of continuing the cleanup of the cemetery that so badly needs it. For VCU InSight, I'm Wanye Reese.
Richmond's newest mayor, LeVar Stoney, is taking on a number of issues in the city, ranging from his most recent inclusion directive to working with Richmond Police and Richmond Public Schools.
InSight's very own John Hood is in the studio with Mayor LeVar Stoney on more. John?
Hours after the following interview, Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney accepted the resignation of Stephen Hammond Jr., the executive assistant mentioned in this interview, following more revelations concerning Mr. Hammond's criminal history. I'm here with Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney, the youngest mayor in the city's history. Thanks for joining us, LeVar.
Thanks, John.
So, to start off, you talked about cleaning up City Hall, and you just hired some VCU staff to help clean up. So, why did you hire a former program coordinator who embezzled $240,000 as an executive assistant on your staff?
Well, you know, I did ask for a performance review from VCU's performance management group, along with some executives from all across our private sector. Looking at, taking an unsparing view of City Hall, finding what programs work, what programs don't work. If we've been running the same program for 25 years and are getting the same results or no results at all, I want to see some changes there. And so this will be done in the first 100 days. The recommendations will be made at the 100 days, and we'll start implementing them. But to speak to the individual who was hired in my office who had a past felony on his record. When I was Secretary of the Commonwealth, I spoke daily about second chances and restorative justice. My father was a former offender who was given a second chance and a chance to vote. I believe in redemption. That is just who I am, and I just believe that people deserve second chances. And I'd rather be an individual who practices what they preach instead of an individual who just runs away from their principles. I've always stood by my principles, and I'm not going to change because I've taken the oath of office.
Okay. And you talk about second chances. So I'm just wondering, wouldn't maybe his second chance have been the 10-year prison proposal that he was supposed to do, but he later just ended up paying fines? Do you not believe that was a second chance?
Well, the Judge Gibney and a number of individuals, whether they were Delegate Bourne or Delegate Bagby, all believed that this individual was someone who they could take on in their office. And Delegate Bagby did, and they recommended him to me, and so did Delegate Bourne. And I took them at their opinion, and I believe the guy's an upstanding guy, and that's why I asked him to join my team.
Okay. So recently you signed a directive to protect policies of inclusion in the city of Richmond. How will that be enforced?
Well, you know what? These are policies that were in place. I signed a mayoral directive maybe 2 weeks ago saying that Richmond is an inclusive, welcoming city, that no matter how you look, no matter what God you pray to, what language you may speak, or what your immigration status may be, you have a welcoming home right here in the city of Richmond. And these are policies that have always been a part of what makes Richmond great. Our police department never has asked anyone for their immigration status, and they will not under my tenure as mayor of the city. And so if an individual finds or encounters an unwelcoming posture from the city, I want you to report it to our Multicultural Affairs office, and we'll actually move on that on those incidents. But I have not heard anything reported recently. But if there are any, if you ever encounter any, please reach out to our Carla Ramos in our Multicultural Affairs office.
So then, I know this has been asked a lot. Are you saying that Richmond is a sanctuary city?
No, I never said use the word sanctuary. I said that Richmond is a welcoming and inclusive city. Our policies may look like those of some sanctuary cities, but here in Richmond, I don't control jails. I don't control the office of the sheriff's office. There's a duly elected individual there in Sheriff Woody, and he controls the interactions after our police officers may have made an arrest. But I will tell you this, we are open to anyone. And if a person wants to come here and make a life for themselves and be prosperous and contribute to a great community, then Richmond's the place for them.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I'm John Hood, and I'm with Mayor LeVar Stoney. Back to you at the desk.
College tuition in Virginia may be on the rise again. But why is tuition being raised in some colleges when they don't need the money? Our Kaylin Miller-Keys has more on the story.
A surprising statement from Senator Chap Peterson on universities raising their tuition.
My problem has been where a university already has cash on hand and they have the assets on hand and they raise tuition anyway. Maybe because they see their competitors from other states raising tuition, they think, well, we can get away with it and raise tuition also, but they don't actually need the money.
A representative from President Rao's office said that this is not something VCU has done. While this may not be an issue at VCU, the price of tuition still is for many students. This is something that could change as over 20 bills have been introduced at the General Assembly that aim to lower college tuition. Senator Bill DeSteffe put in a few bills, and he says his goal is to make college more affordable again.
One of our jobs is to prepare the workforce of the future. It's hard to prepare the workforce of the future if they can't afford to go to college.
Not everyone agrees with the possible cuts in tuition. Peterson says some of his bills have died in finance because of this.
The finance committee, the senior members there, they hate my bills because, they're very close with university presidents, and to them the universities can do no wrong and the university presidents can do no wrong.
Both Peterson and DeSteffe want to hold public colleges accountable for their raises in tuition, and the bills they've introduced here at the General Assembly all help with that issue.
We have to look at affordability and make college affordable.
With VCU InSight, I'm Kaylin Miller-Keys.
As we previously reported, VCU President Michael Rao is working to lower the state budget cut from 7.5% to 5%. Do you get frustrated driving behind a slow driver in the left lane on the highway? Well, that could soon change. The Virginia Senate has just approved a bill that could fine Virginia drivers up to $250 for going too slow in the left lane on highways. Under current Virginia law, driving below the speed limit in the left lane is illegal, but this bill will put a penalty on the act. The proposer of the bill, Delegate Israel O'Quinn, hopes that this will cut down on accidents and road rage on the highway. The bill is currently waiting for Governor McAuliffe's signature.
There's going to be a new high school coming to Richmond that specializes in computer code writing. The school is located on Cummings Drive near the Diamond and will open its doors this September. Since the school is partially online, students will use their free time to gain real-world experience through paid internships. And they'll even have the opportunity to graduate high school with an associate's degree from J. Sargent Reynolds. Executive Director Michael Bowling says the goal of the school is to have an intentionally diverse group of students that's representative of Richmond.
We will have all types of students in our school, and we're so excited about that. We're going to be providing opportunities to students that they have never dreamed of, nor their family had ever dreamed of.
Students will be selected by a lottery system, and they'll be notified of their acceptance by March 10th.
VCU Brand Center continues to shine bright on advertising's biggest stage. 11 VCU Brand Center alumni had a hand in creating 9 different commercials that aired during Super Bowl 51. The alumni worked on advertisements ranging from Bud Light to Audi. Kaylee Cantrell, Brand Center's head strategy professor, talked about how the Brand Center prepares students for success in the advertising industry.
In the classroom, the projects that we ask them to take on are very akin to what they are going to be experiencing when they are in their careers. So I think it allows them to hit the ground running and get farther faster and progress quickly and really understand what's going to be expected of them when they get their first job.
If you want to watch the 9 Super Bowl commercials by VCU alumni, visit www.brandcenter.vcu.edu.
Still to come, we'll show you how one Henrico man with cerebral palsy is helping make life easier for others with disabilities.
And Grand Farm celebrated its 2nd annual event. Coming up, we'll tell you how much they raised for the Children's Hospital of Richmond.
We've never been very good at sitting still. Maybe that's why we built our campus in the middle of a city. Why we put our classrooms on riverbanks, in Fortune 500 companies, even on stage. At Virginia Commonwealth University, learning happens everywhere. What matters most is how you make it real.
VCU's Capital News Service, a student-run project for the General Assembly, is providing coverage for over 90 different news outlets across the state. And now, for the first time, the university's news service is sending stories to the Associated Press, propelling their recognition from statewide to nationwide. InSight's Alexandra Sosik is in the studio with VCU professor Jeff South, who heads the Capital News Service. Alexandra?
Thanks, Kaylin. Joining me today are Professor Jeff South and Mara from the Commonwealth Times and Capital News Service. Thank you, Professor South and Mara, for joining me today.
Yeah.
So CNS has gotten a lot of publicity this semester. Publicity that I don't know has been seen in semesters past. So tell me, what makes Capital News Service such a unique course compared to the other journalism courses in the Robertson School?
Well, what was new this semester is that we are offering selected stories to the Associated Press. And as a result of that, the AP then broadcasts those stories to hundreds or thousands of clients. And so we've found our stories are getting published by many more organizations than in the past.
Maura, tell me what that's like as a student reporter with Capital News Service, having stories by you and your classmates fed through the Associated Press and going to places like the Washington Post and the Chicago Tribune.
Yeah, it's really exciting. You know, every student journalist wants to get their byline out there as much as possible. I mean, the more bylines you have, the more experienced you look and the more experienced you are. So it's really, really exciting. I think that our class is really great because everyone's very encouraging of each other when they do get bylines. In the Washington Post or the U.S. News Report, it's cool because we're just all, 20, 21-year-old students, and we're doing the same work that really experienced journalists are doing. Mm-hmm. So it's really exciting.
Right, and along with that, students are going out and, going to the General Assembly and to big protest events happening right here in Richmond. And you're side by side with professional journalists that work for newspapers and local television news stations. What is it like to be in school but still standing alongside them working for the same purpose?
Yeah, when you go to events at the General Assembly and you go down to the Capitol or cover protests or anything, for me at least, you kind of forget that you're a student and you're just in it with everyone else. Definitely sometimes when you're talking to professional journalists, they can be a little, they can be very aware that you're a student. But you just have to have thick skin, and that's almost better to have that experience of people knowing you're a student and realizing your competition, because it'll just prepare you more for when we graduate and get real world jobs. So, yeah.
And speaking of thick skin, you released on Facebook, you apologized for being enemies of the American people. What would you like to speak on that?
Well, we were poking a little bit of satirical fun at the tweet that President Trump had blasted out on Friday, in which he called the news media the enemy of the American people. I think that was really over the top. He may well think it's over the top, but we thought we would push back by explaining what reporters do, and we had some fun with that by having students illustrate the stories that they've covered and then provide a little tongue-in-cheek twist to how that story may have been part of the enemy's plot.
Thank you so much, Professor South and Maura, for joining us today. Let's send it back to the desk.
Over 750,000 Americans are affected by cerebral palsy nationally, but one hero doesn't let it stop him from making a difference in his community.
No matter the day or time.
It's almost 3 o'clock, really? Good Lord. Where'd the day go?
Matthew Shapiro is always moving. Diagnosed with cerebral palsy, he decided to create his own company from his home.
I decided to take all of my years of experience working with youth and being involved in the Virginia advocacy world and try and turn it into a consulting business.
His company, Six Wheels Consulting, does assessments of handicapped spaces, disability sensitivity training, and lobbying services.
We are an organization that works with really anyone in the community, schools, businesses, nonprofits, government agencies, hospitals, really anyone.
Matthew Shapiro holds many education seminars for organizations to teach them what are proper building requirements for people with disabilities, such as hotel beds and wider walkways in restaurants. Matthew's dad helps with the company and is his biggest supporter.
The one quality I love most is every day he takes life as a new challenge. And every day he's inspired, maybe not inspired, but encouraged to go to the next level and accomplish something that day.
I'm very excited for the future, but it's a day-to-day grind, and I'm excited for the challenge.
This is Ryan Karstens reporting.
Matthew's long-term plan is to make Six Wheels Consulting his full-time job, so he can be a voice for everyone with a disability. Hundreds of VCU students danced at Carey Street Gym for 12 hours straight, all for a good cause. These students danced in Ramthon, the second annual event to raise money for the Children's Hospital of Richmond at VCU. The money raised helps families whose kids are staying at the hospital.
They dance to create joy where joy is really hard to find. Thank you for dancing. Thank you for bringing hope and love to kids like me. And thank you for having us. Give that to you today.
Students who raised a certain amount of money during the event were allowed to sit down and take a break, and were also encouraged to donate money during the event for a prize. Altogether, they danced and made over $21,000 for families and patients at VCU's Children's Hospital. Ramthon is an extension of the Children's Miracle Network, and if you want to help out at home, you can make donations at childrensmiraclenetwork.org. Planning for next year's Ramthon has already started.
What do the James River, a growing job market, and a city full of history have in common? Well, they're just some of the reasons Richmond made the list of the top 25 places to live in the U.S. in 2017. According to the U.S. News and World Report, the city of Richmond ranked 24th on their list of best places to live. Its cultural history makes it a popular tourist destination, while its growing job market is also attracting more people to the area. Education, cost of living, and crime rates also factored into the ranking. Last year, Richmond came in at number 28 and seems to be on the rise.
And that does it for this edition of VCU InSight.
Make sure to check out our website at insight.vcu.edu.
You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under VCU InSight. Contact us with any stories you'd like to see on our show.
And if you missed our show or would like to watch it again, you can find us on YouTube at VCU InSight. Thanks for watching. I'm Kaylin Miller-Keys.
And I'm Nora Deer. We'll see you next time.